Law Minister Kiren Rijiju's latest comments in Parliament has sparked a fresh row pitting the government against the judiciary once again. Now, during a discussion in the Rajya Sabha, the Law Minister blamed the backlog of cases in the country in part on the Supreme Court's hearings of PILs that he termed frivolous. He also questioned why the Supreme Court, which is a constitutional court, should be hearing bail application hearings. This was said yesterday in Parliament. Let me first play out what the minister said.
Made certain remarks in a very, very good gesture to Honorable Supreme Court that you take up those cases which are relevant and which are appropriate for Supreme Court to take up. If Supreme Court of India starts hearing bail applications, if Supreme Court of India starts hearing all frivolous PILs, definitely it will cause lots of extra burden on the Honorable Court itself. Because Supreme Court by and large is treated as a constitutional court. And I have personally conveyed this message to the Honorable Chief Justice and the other judges of the Supreme Court that we will be with the Supreme Court.
Now, soon after these comments, Rajya Sabha BJP MP Sushil Modi added fuel to the fire, questioning the high number of vacation days that courts take. Listen in to what he said.
माननीय मंत्री ने ये हॉलीडेज के बारे में उत्तर दिया है। माननीय मंत्री जी ने बताया कि हाई कोर्ट के अंदर 155 हॉलीडेज होती है एक साल के अंदर और सुप्रीम कोर्ट में 141 और इतनी बड़ी संख्या में केसेस पेंडिंग है और पूरे हिंदुस्तान में किसी दूसरे इंस्टीट्यूशन में वोकेशन का प्रावधान नहीं है, केवल स्कूल कॉलेज छोड़कर। तो मैं माननीय मंत्री जी से ये जानना चाहता हूँ, क्या चीफ जस्टिस ऑफ इंडिया से बात करेंगे कि समर वेकेशन, विंटर वेकेशन को खत्म करके और जैसे हर व्यक्ति अपनी छुट्टी लेता साल में 120 या 115, वो व्यवस्था जो अन्य जगह पर लागू है उसको करने के बारे में क्या चीफ जस्टिस से बात करेंगे?
Now, it all seems to boil back down to the old simmering fight between this government and the judiciary over how judges are selected. That's at the root of it all. Quick recap. The government brought in a bill that changes the selection process through a National Judicial Appointments Commission, or the NJAC, in 2015. The court struck it down. Law Minister Kiren Rijiju talked about the way judges are selected as a reason for cases piling up once again today in Parliament. Listen in.
वैकेंसी को भरने के लिए सरकार के पास बहुत सीमित अधिकार है। जो कॉलेजियम नाम तय करके यहाँ भेजते हैं, उसके अलावा सरकार के पास कोई अधिकार नहीं है कि जजों का अपॉइंटमेंट के लिए हम नए नाम ढूंढें। हम बार बार चीफ जस्टिस हाई कोर्ट के और सुप्रीम कोर्ट के चीफ जस्टिस को हम निजी तौर पर भी कहते हैं और लिखित तौर पर भी हमने कहा है कि जजेस का जो वैकेंसी है उसको भरने के लिए तुरंत नाम भेजा जाए। पेंडेंसी ऑफ केसेस को खत्म करने के लिए हम जरूर अपना तरफ से पूरा समर्थन दे रहे हैं, लेकिन अपॉइंटमेंट को लेकर के जब तक हम नए व्यवस्था खड़ा नहीं करेंगे तब तक जजेस का वैकेंसी का इशू, अपॉइंटमेंट का सवाल उठते रहेगा।
Now, these comments have sparked sharp criticism from the opposition that has claimed the government is attacking the judiciary and interfering in its functioning, a charge that has been denied time and again. What's at the core of this entire fight? It's the huge backlog of cases, and that is a real problem. In civil society, Tariq pe Tariq is an issue that all Indians are facing. At present, there are more than 4.8 crore cases pending. Out of these 4.29 crore cases, and that's important, a bulk of them, 4.29 crore cases, are pending in the lower courts. Nearly 60 lakh cases in the high courts and close to 70,000 cases in the apex court are pending at this time. But once again, the big bulk of cases are pending in the lower courts. As for vacancies, that's the other bugbear, isn't it? That there aren't enough judges. Out of the sanctioned strength of 34, 7 seats are vacant. As far as the Supreme Court is concerned, similarly, 336 seats lie vacant in the High Court out of the sanctioned strength of 1,108. And here, the judiciary blames the government because the judiciary gives its recommendations of who should be elevated. They claim the government is sitting on names for very, very long. Now, here's the question. Should governments be commenting on cases or the kinds of cases that the Supreme Court hears, whether they're bail, applications, or whatever the kind of cases they are? Who will decide which PILs are frivolous or not? Isn't that left to the discretion of the judges? Should courts have as many vacation days as they do? That's another question that has come up, that the courts are facing a backlog of cases because there are too many vacation days. And where does the blame lie for judge vacancies not being filled up on time? We're going to be talking about some of these issues today. Sanjay Hegde, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court, is with me on the show. Rahul Mehra, lawyer, Supreme Court, is with me. Sandeep Ghosh, author, is joining us today. And I'm also speaking with Dr. Justice Satish Chandra, former judge. Thank you to all of you for speaking with us today on the show. Sanjay Hegde, let me begin with you. The charge that the opposition is making is that this is a form of interference, that the law minister should not be speaking about why the Supreme Court is listening to bail applications. But the point that Mr. Rijiju seems to be making is that if the Supreme Court entertains all of these kind of cases, obviously there will be a backlog.
Well, if most of the bail applications are applications where there have been wrongful prosecutions, right? The prosecuting agency is the government, right? And the rare occasions that somebody gets bail in the courts below, it is the government which files applications to cancel the bail. Most of the problem, as far as the Indian Supreme Court, is structural. The Constitution gives it a huge jurisdiction, and everybody tries their last chance at the dice. But who is the biggest litigant before the Supreme Court? It is the government itself. It is the government which can't decide among its own various departments as to which department is right. Those matters also come to the Supreme Court. It is the government officers who say, look, we think you are right, but please get us a court order so that we don't have to take a decision. So it is not as if the number of cases that the court chooses to hear is of the court's violation. There are so many cases which the court just, about 90% of cases in the Supreme Court get dismissed on the first day itself. Do you know what, as far as the US Supreme Court is concerned, there are 9 judges there. How many cases do they hear in a year? They get about 7,000 petitions and they hear about 100 or 150. India has about 3 times, the Indian Supreme Court has about 3 times those judges. We have about 30,000 criminal specialty petitions and about the same number of civil petitions. And then you have writ petitions and whatnot. The amount of work that the hardworking judges of the Supreme Court and the high courts do is quite commendable.
I don't know if it's a question of whether they're working hard.
One last point.
It's the question about whether they're working hard.
That seems to be the implication, no? Why do judges have so many vacations? And let me put it, that when Mr. Sushil Modi speaks, he speaks for the BJP. There is an orchestrated campaign going on, and the judiciary seems to be the new Nehru to take all the blame for what this government can't get right.
Is it an orchestrated campaign? Justice Satish Chandra, let me get your point of view. Is it an orchestrated campaign that you see going on, as Sanjay Hegde says? And a specific answer on the point of vacation. Do courts take too many vacations?
Madam, judges' life is very hard. First of all, they are listening all the judgment cases in the courtroom. After that, when they came to chamber, they will have to dictate the order or correct the short orders, what was dictated in the court. And long orders will have to be dictated. By evening, they will get the fresh for the tomorrow. So all fresh will have to be gone through and make the notes on that one. Next morning, when you reach the court, then you will have to correct the dictation. What you have given the dictation yesterday, you will have to correct that judgment. because when a loser party or a party who could not get a success will find the defects, a comma, full stop, all these things with the microscopic glass. So judge is always very careful, and he will give this judgment, and he will have to do other works. At the same time, he has a family life, he has his personal attention, so vacation is required. But a suggestion of Sushil Modi, who said that the court may continue and judge individual may take the leave like other institutions, that can be debated and that can be consulted. But fact remains that advocates will not be ready. They also want to enjoy the holiday. So when court will work for the round the year, then they will not be agree for that one. But it is a debatable point. It can be think over.
I'm going to get a quick response from
About
Sanjay
this,
Hegde. It's the advocates who want the vacation, says Justice Chandra.
No. See, there is a structural problem there. Almost every set of litigants wants the same set of lawyers. If the judges don't, if there are no set vacations, what will happen is that the advocates will continually be working, or the same set of advocates, and people will just die of exhaustion. The system
But 1 minute, sir. No one forces advocates to take the case. Don't take so many cases.
No, that's easier said than done, madam. You have people who are on death row. You have people who are going to lose their houses. When you take a case, you do not know on what date it is going to come. Of course, as a senior advocate, I might say that, look, I will not be working on these dates. But the normal filing advocate, the person who handles the brief, if you are going to tell him that you're going to work 365 days, and in the outside chance that it will come up before Judge X or Judge Y, the system will simply not work.
I want to come to the point that Sanjay Hegde made, Sandeep Ghosh, that this is an orchestrated attack against the judiciary. The judiciary has become the new Nehru, is specifically what he said. Do you think that this is an attack on the judiciary from the government?
Mr. Hegde, whom I would take the liberty of calling Sanjay because we have been old sparring partners on television, that is he has given you the bite, the headline bite by saying judiciary is the new Nehru. But the bigger point he made right at the beginning is that it is a structural problem. And I think that is something which one has to recognize. As speaking as a layman, as somebody who has to go to the judiciary very often for litigation, my common sense says, which you're talking about the number of vacancies and the total number of judges, that, in any organization you have it. In your organization, where in the media house, I'm sure you don't have 100%, positions filled up. You always have, so the percentage-wise, that is small. But it is a systemic issue which is delaying. Now, that is something...
Mr. Ghosh, may I just come in? You're obfuscating what the issue is. This is not a systemic issue question today. The judiciary says the government is not passing the names they are sending. The fight is there.
Give me half a second. So there is a lot of shadow boxing happening on a different issue, and deflecting as what you're saying that I'm obfuscating, that is getting deflected to issues like holidays, which many people don't understand the meaning of holidays. Again, Mr. Hegde will correct me if I have to. Holidays is a misnomer. When they talk of holidays for judges, very prosperous advocates like him take holidays. They earn so much during the few things they can afford. They want to use that money. What will they do? They have to go to fancy places and take holidays. But judges have to spend that time reading, writing judgments. That is why these long holidays were provided. There's a British archaic term of holidays, which people, a layman like me or even some politicians, unfortunately, BJP doesn't have so many good big lawyers, unlike Congress had. So they don't understand what is the meaning of holidays. So they're picking on that. But the issue really is, Tamanna, you and I have to go to court with a very simple case of whether your house, you're being thrown out of the house, or there is a bail, other serious issue, and then you find that your case getting delayed by months and months and years, and the court is going on taking the so-called frivolous litigation, PIL litigation, or some bail application because somebody is a VIP or somebody who is an international activist, celebrity who gets a bail hearing over the telephone and all that, then you feel frustrated. And then I appoint Mr. Hegde tomorrow to appear for my case. I pay him his very astronomical fee. He comes to the court and he is not heard, and he still his clerk or his solicitor sells me the check, and I find somebody else.
So who will decide? No, the question is, you want the government to decide which case they should take and they should not.
No.
Who will decide what's frivolous?
So that's the point. That is where the whole shadow boxing is happening. People are getting into this whole issue.
I think we're getting off track. I want to bring Rahul Mehra in. We're getting off track because vacations is an example. Bail hearing kyun karti hai Supreme Court is an example. So-called frivolous PIL is an example. Behind all of it, is there a questioning of the judiciary which is going on by the government, as Sanjay Hegde claims? Because time and again in that same speech, Kiren Rijiju said, we believe in and we back the independence of the judiciary.
So let's make no mistake about it. First of all, I think the government of the day wants a committed judiciary, and that's what it's all about. They want judges on their side. It's like the the discourse which we've been hearing over the years now, that if you are not with this particular government, then you are anti-national. So if it's not their way, it's their way or the highway. And if you don't actually believe in what the government is doing, government is the country, government is the nation, and there is no distinction between the two. Nationalism, patriotism for them means the same. And that's the line of thought of this government. They want judges to be appointed by them so that they are subservient to them, so that there is a committed judiciary, and so that they are, since they've been able to tame almost every other institution in the country, they should be able to do the same with judiciary as well. Unfortunately, judiciary, and rightly so, is not playing ball with them. So I personally feel that this is all about controlling, micromanaging cases, especially very, very sensitive cases, where things can get very uncomfortable for the government of the day, and that's the bottom line. We can now talk about frivolous things, which the law minister has been talking about. Now 3 different occasions he's done this. In fact, the Honorable Vice President of the country has also chosen a couple of occasions to do this. I don't know what is in the mind of the government, and I really feel quite sad that constitutional positions are being misused to the extent of almost taking to there is now a kind of a logjam, and I dare say there is a confrontation to such an extent where somebody who blinks first is the question. And is judiciary and the judges, are they going to sit quiet, or are they going to say enough is enough and now we need to take some very strict action? We need to probably issue a notice of contempt. Will that happen? I hope not. I hope good sense prevails within the government, and I hope I hope the judiciary is not pushed but towards the wall and pushed to such an extent that they feel as if it's a level of suffocation, and then some reaction happens. It's not going to be healthy for the institutions. It's not going to be healthy for the country. These are things where maybe a little bit of a nudge is required. But if you take institutions like this head on, situations where on the floor of the house you're demeaning an entire institution, and let's be very clear about it. With all its ills, I'm not saying Supreme Court doesn't need to really think about its own.
Are they being demeaned? I want to get Justice Chandra in. Are they being demeaned? Do you think the judiciary judiciary today is being demeaned. It's under attack from the government. Is there an
Obviously.
attempt at interference?
Obviously.
Justice Chandra, let me hear his point of view very, very clearly. Let's not go into details and minutiae of vacation days. Judges take vacation, lawyer don't want to take. Let's come straight to the point. Do you think there's an attack on the judiciary?
I will comment on the Rahul Mehra's statement that what government wants. Government wants to create again the National Appointment Judicial Commission. This is an open secret, everybody knows it. So all these statements are coming. And regarding the commitment of the government or taking the judiciary, no chance has come for the supersession of any judge, like the Indira Gandhi's period, when so many judges were superseded. So that is not the way. And now government is saying, or all statements are made that where is the Collegium in the constitution? There is no word of the Collegium in the constitution. And this is only India where judges are appointing the judges. So they said you follow Article 124, 217. 124 is for the High Court judges and 217 of the Supreme Court judges. Consultation with the Chief Justice or consultation of this ones and appoint the judges on. And prior to 1981, there were so many illustrious judges, very intelligent judges were there who had given the remarkable judgments. Sitalwad and other so many persons. And in S.P. Gupta's case, that is the 30th December 1981, that is the first judgment, first judge's case, where supremacy of the executive was held. But on the other hand, on the Advocates of Record versus Union of India,
no, if I can request you, please, Justice Chandra, what is the point you're making? Is the government interfering or not?
No, government is not interfering. Government wants to take the power of the appointment. That's all, as per the constitution. They said, where is the word of the constitution?
Do you think that's something they should do? Do you think that's something they should do?
They did it. They brought the National Judicial Commission Act by amending
but
the
it was
Constitution
thrown out by the court.
And that was struck down by the Supreme Court. So now they will make another attempt to bring the same act.
Yeah, Sandeep Ghosh wants to come in. Yes, Sandeep.
I just want to make a couple of points. I don't think brinkmanship is such a bad thing. A lot of lawyers do it. A lot of lawyers up the ante, and then ultimately they withdraw by apologizing to the court or issuing apologies and get back after the court pulls them up. So brinkmanship is a part of our dynamics. Now, what is happening today, Tamanna, are 2 points I'd like to make. One is, you don't really have to influence if the ecosystem is working, whether it's in any profession. And we know that the judicial system is where there is a very incestuous system. You see most of our judges, chief justices, lawyers, they're third generation people whose fathers have been judges, etc. So if you have to break into that system, there will be some resistance. Some kind of an action will happen. But that doesn't mean people can't question. Earlier, if you are working within the ecosystem, you can get other people in and you're very happy that people in the same ecosystem has gotten, etc. Now, if somebody else is trying to break into that, you will have these kind of frictions. But the biggest question you and I have to ask, like I say as a corporate person, I cite this example very often. There's a person of Indian origin who was a top-notch corporate executive in the US who got caught in for insider trading. He got convicted. He has now come out of the whole thing after his conviction, serving his sentence, and he is now once again out and in India, if that were to happen, for the next 30 years, he will still be contesting. And the guy who was his accomplice, he was asked, he was a Sri Lankan, why did you do this kind of a thing in the US? He said, see, in our country, if you're powerful, we know we can always get away. So we assume here we can get away. And that's why we did that. That's the problem we have in the country. And that's where I go back to Sanjay's point. It's a structural issue, which, instead of, doing the shadow boxing, which I call, people should really try to address that issue.
Sandeep Ghosh, the concern over here, and you're right, pendency of cases is a structural issue. It's a problem. But when the courts work, at least they are working independently. That's a cornerstone of our democracy, that we have an independent judiciary. Today, the question is being raised on whether that independent judiciary is under attack. And the independence of that judiciary is under attack.
No, by creating an NJAC...
So pendency is becoming an excuse to talking about is
No,
becoming an
but if-
excuse to talking down the judiciary. That's the charge.
No, the point is, Tamanna, if I were to, it may not be an equivalent analogy. If today in your organization, one person takes the call on appointing a new anchor, instead of that, if you have an interview board in which you have professionals present, whether that is compromising the authority of the owner of the channel or the CEO of the channel, that is the question we need to ask. Is NJAC
I don't
such
know
a
if that
bad
parallel
thing
works.
in concert?
I don't know if that parallel works at all. I'm going to let Sanjay Hegde answer that. I don't know if that parallel works at all, because the importance of the judge that sits
Tamanna,
there.
can I take that?
Yeah, yes, please. I can't quite wrap my head around that.
No. Tamanna, let's say that the anchors of the channel would be appointed from the BJP headquarters. Would that be acceptable?
No.
No, that's exactly what.
But
that's exactly the threat. That's exactly
Sanjay,
the threat. Why
but
do you want the power of appointment? You want the power of appointment because you can go back to that old American joke. What do you call a lawyer who knew a politician of the correct party? Your Honor. So ultimately, that is what the Republicans have tried to control the US through controlling the US Supreme Court. In Pakistan, we had the example of Pervez Musharraf being overthrown by the lawyers when he tried to interfere with the Pakistan Supreme Court. In India, we've had the problem with Mrs. Gandhi, who tried to control the Supreme Court, and then it led to the emergency and the disasters thereafter. Those who fail to remember the lessons of history are condemned to repeat it. What we see currently is that there is another powerful government which wants to say that we will have no checks upon our authority.
Is NJAC, that's the construct of NJAC, Sanjay, I'm asking you as a knowledgeable person. NJAC, from whatever I have read, doesn't say that the government is going to take a call. It's a fairly egalitarian body which is widely represented by the judiciary, by independent people,
the
as well as
judiciary's dominant
people from the
voice
government.
was shut down. That is why the judiciary struck down the NJAC.
No, explain that again, Sanjay. Explain that again.
Yes. So 3 members of the NJAC were to be judges. The other 3 members were non-judges. So the 3 non-judicial members could then overwhelm the judiciary or get into a deadlock. The Constitution provides for appointment of judges with the consultation of the judiciary. That has been interpreted to mean effective consultation, and the voice of the Chief Justice is not his sole voice, but the voice of the 3 senior-most judges. That is the position. And collegiums.
But can I bring a point here, gentlemen?
Yes.
NJAC, Collegium, will the government bring the NJAC again is in the future. Why is there a backlog of cases? Because there are fewer judges. Why are there so many vacancies? The complaint is...
Just give me one...
The complaint is that the government is sitting on the files.
Single line. See, India has less than 15 judges per million population. Most developed countries have nearly 100 judges per million population. No politician in India is ever going to get elected by saying that we will increase the number of courts. As it is, the 1,000-odd High Court judges and the 30-odd Supreme Court judges are enough of a pain for the government. They are not going to expand it anyway. The government keeps adding to the burden of the courts by not making the correct decisions at the correct point of time. So this is where we are, and judges
Rahul
are
Mehra,
easy whipping boys
the charge is
because
that
they
the government
can't
is
speak.
sitting on appointments. When the Collegium sends its its names, they're sitting on the appointments. That's the charge. Yes, Mr. Mehra,
that's because Tamanna, it's a one-sided thing.
I thought so. Tamanna, the issue is, see, as far as the appointment of judges is concerned, one has to be also conscious of the fact that not many successful lawyers want to be judges. Number 2, the number of judges obviously are not being filled because it's not only about quantity, it's also about quality. If you don't have the right mindset, if you don't have people with integrity on that job, it's a very dangerous proposition to have not the right kind of people sitting in the realms of judiciary. So that's another aspect. Thirdly, what you have highlighted right from the beginning, that there are reiterations which are being made by the Collegium and the government of the day, because they don't find that particular judge to be a kind of a suitable judge for them. Therefore, they have not even cared to respond back to the Collegium. It's binding, it's mandatory on the government, and there are timelines which have been fixed. If you don't like a judgment as an ordinary citizen, if you don't like a judgment, you have recourses, you can challenge it. If you don't like a Supreme Court judgment, you can go in for review. There is a curative petition that you can file. Beyond that, there is nothing. Then you have to accept it. I think this is, the government needs to have take 2 steps back, needs to understand that if you at the top, at the helm of the affairs, if you give a message down to the people that judgments can be ignored and judgments can be toyed around like this, then it's setting a very bad precedent for all other judgments and the rule of law in this country. Imagine if state governments start doing this. Imagine if the heads of the state start refusing to accept a judgment as high as of that of the Supreme Court. There's going to be complete anarchy in this country. And we still pride ourselves with rule of law. We are a very vibrant democracy, and therefore we must preserve these very saintly institutions, and we must do whatever is in our capacity.
But are these institutions above question?
But
Yes,
the counter to that is, if you're saying it's a democracy, if the parliament passes an act, can it get overturned by the judiciary because it's another?
Yes, it can.
No.
That's the basic. No, that's the basic problem. The law minister needs to understand. The law minister.
One by one, please.
It's not the final
Rahul
word.
Mehra, let him finish his point. Let him finish his point, and then you can counter.
It's not the final word. If they revisit that issue, and if they want to go back to a new NJAC or appeal, as you were saying, for a larger bench to decide it, what's the problem there? Why are they also worked up?
Madam,
One minute, one by one, please. Yes, Sandeep, have you finished your point, Mr. Ghosh?
Yeah.
So then please bring that.
Yes, Rahul Mehra.
So then please bring a new law. Let the judiciary test it. Let the judiciary has to interpret the law. Judiciary has the final word. Judiciary will decide whether it is the basic structure which is violated or not. It is not a minister, it is not a government which will decide all of this. That's where the basic flaw. Allow me. That is where the basic flaw of understanding is, as far as the law minister of the day is concerned. It is not that the will of the people has to be expressed. Will of the people. Who will decide what is the will of the people eventually? The elections decide that. Once you are in parliament, you pass a law. That law has to be tested. Every law is tested. If the law passes the test of the day, it becomes a law and it's implemented. Otherwise, it falls down. So as a country which believes in rule of law, and a country which has a independent judiciary, there are only two institutions.
Justice Chandra wants to come in. 1 minute. Justice Chandra wants to come in. Yes, Justice Chandra.
Madam, point is this, that what Supreme Court give the judgment, that is not the final. It can be overruled by the parliament. In the Shah Banu's case, during the Rajiv Gandhi period, it happens. So many amendments were brought. So that is there. So there is a doctrine of the check and balance between the parliament and the Supreme Court.
Who has the final call then? In that case, who has the final call?
Check and balance.
The parliament has the final call.
Naturally, parliament has brought the amendment.
Okay, Sanjay Hegde wants to come in. Yes, Sanjay Hegde.
See, it's not a question of who has the final call. The final call is that of the Constitution. Who interprets the Constitution? It's the judges. Parliament can pass a law, but within the bounds of the Constitution. If it passes a law without legislative competence, or if it passes a law in violation of the fundamental rights, or in any way damages the basic structure of the Constitution, then the courts will strike it down. Then Parliament has the task of taking into account why the court struck it down and then pass a law which does not do that. It will have to modify the law. It's not that, look, I have won the elections and therefore I can pass any law that I want to. That is the law of the ruler, not the rule of law.
Well, the fight or the simmering discontent or the barbs or whatever you may call it is not good for anybody, not for the judiciary, not for the government, and definitely not for the people of this country who have to wait for a long time for their cases to be heard. But at the end of that, they have to have complete faith in the institution. We are a democracy which has those checks and balances that needs to be maintained. Thank you so much to all of you for joining us on the lead story this evening on Beyond the Headline. We'll take a very short break. When we come